Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Talks with Ido Evergreen. So in this particular episode, we're going to be talking about backend development, backend fundamentals, guy, and also backend. We'll be touching about different processes, right, and how you could become a backend developer in the age of using AI, right, across your workflow. Joining me in this conversation is an experienced backend engineer, also a tutor, also the founder of Mastering Backend, Solomon. Hi, Solomon.
Hi, Edo. Thank you very much for having me. And hi, everybody. It's awesome to be here.
Amazing. Amazing. So let's just quickly just start the conversation, right? And let's just jump into the conversation real quick. So first off, what pulled you into backend engineering?
Yes. All right. So I think before I get started, let's just balance the air a little and just maybe let me share a little of my story. I think that's going to be very
Yeah,
helpful to have
yeah,
good background, right?
yeah.
So my name is Solomon Eseme, and I'm the founder of Mastering Backend. So I had this story where I wasted 4 years learning Java, and stuff. And then the process of learning Java was, I had was tutorial hell and stuff. Okay, so I had that story, and I think I've been sharing that in public. Um, but having to escape that tutorial hell actually made me to start mastering back and start building the system that would help other people. Yeah, so over the years, I think I've built lots of other systems, um, fintech, edutech, and all of that. And I am now just sharing my experience with everybody and stuff like that. Okay, so I think I just wanted to get that out so that we have like a real foundation to start with. So the question is, what pulled me into backend engineering? Yeah, so I started around 2011, right? Started learning programming, started with HTML and CSS as normal as everybody would. And then I got into JavaScript. I started building front end systems. I think back in the day, there was nothing like back end, front end. It wasn't separated. So it was like together or something. You either do the front end and then move on to build like the back end, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
started building out the layout, and then I had one problem. I had a problem of always mixing colors to turn out good, right? So I didn't know how to do that. So that became like a very heavy problem for me. And then also I said, okay, let me try out the backend part, start learning it and seeing how it goes. And then when I started learning, to be honest, it just clicked, right? Like, seems like I easily understand backend more than the front end. Like, just, normal like that to me. And that is when I start, diving towards the backend part and then not the front end part. So that is how I got pulled. I got pulled into the backend. It was more like this one seems more easier to me than this other one.
Amazing. Okay, amazing. I think for me personally, my own personal experience too was something similar, right? Quite opposite because I'm mostly like building front end systems, and I got the taste, or I enjoy building out like user interfaces, right? That was how I got to find myself like on the front end side of building applications. Yeah, that's actually a quite interesting story. Can you remember one mistake you made back then, right? I think you already mentioned one, which was tutorial hell. But is there any other mistake you
Yeah.
can actually remember you made back then that you will not make, like with your present experience?
Yeah, so when learning backend engineering, right, one mistake that I made was was thinking that backend engineering has a stop, like an end. when you are going
Hmm.
to school, for example, right? You know that you are in year one, first year in school, and then it has like an end, like you're going to graduate at maybe the fourth year or fifth year, right? So you have that projection. So that was a mistake I made in backend engineering. I had a projection that when I get to this point, it's going to end, right? Like I will be an expert. But that is something that I still remember till today. When I got to that point, I noticed that it was just the beginning, right? You
Hmm.
need a whole lot you need to learn a whole lot of different things to be able to even build different systems, right? And that was my mistake. But now I've got to understand that there are other parts that makes up backend engineering than just being a straight line, right?
Mm, amazing. So let's quickly just jump right into backend fundamentals, right? So we have these
Mhm.
conversations, maybe mostly on Twitter or LinkedIn, right? This banter around what do backend developers actually do? Do they just build APIs, or what do they actually do for their day-to-day activities, like on a full-time role? What do they actually do?
Yeah, so this is a popular question on Twitter, like you've rightly said. And
Yeah.
the answer for me is going to be completely different from, what I've heard so far. So
Okay.
backend engineering doesn't just build APIs, right?
Oh,
I mean,
all right.
they literally build the APIs, but that is not the core of what they do. Now, what
Okay.
a backend engineer does is two things. One, a backend engineer designs a system, right? That is
Hmm.
one. And then the second thing is a backend engineer maintains a system, right?
Okay.
So that is what they do, not literally sitting down and, building out APIs and stuff like that. A backend engineer that does that doesn't actually understand, what he's supposed to be doing, right? So they design systems, they orchestrate like every piece of the system, how it's supposed to work, right? And then they maintain a system, maybe a system that they have designed or a system that has already been designed or created, all right? So they maintain it. Okay, so that is the core two things that a backend engineer does.
So that makes a lot of sense. So you said backend engineers actually don't just build APIs. What they do is they build systems. I think I like that statement actually. They build system, they maintain systems, already existing system, right? Uh, okay. So now thinking about backend engineering, right? On a, let's say, a framework agnostic. When I mean framework, I mean framework language agnostic way, right? Because we see
Mm.
some people are always talking about, oh, I'm a Node.js backend developer, I'm a Flask backend developer. They just specialize um in just that framework. So what do you think are the core concepts of backend engineering that could be carried across different frameworks and languages?
Yeah, so thank you very much. So the first thing that comes to mind is the method of learning, like approach, the way people learn things, right? So that
Okay,
is
okay.
the first thing that is transferable, like you can move it between languages, right? If you have the right way that you learn language, like you learn a programming language, you can transfer that methods to learning different other languages, right? So that is one thing that I can tell you because first, if you're able to learn Java, right, the right way, not just mastering the syntax, but understanding what these syntax, when you combine them together, what they do, and how you
Mm-hmm.
can use this syntax to actually solve problems that you have, right? To actually solve problems that you have. That is when you can then transfer such kind of knowledge towards any other programming language that you have, right? So you don't need to learn maybe different programming languages, right, to be a backend engineer. You can actually draw in one
Okay.
language, but then you have knowledge of so many ways that systems are being built. Do you understand? So you have good knowledge of that,
Yes,
and
I
then
do.
you use this particular language that you know to implement them. Now, what this does for you is if you are joining a company that decides to change to a different language, one, you already know how to learn that language. And then two, you already know the
Okay.
ways to build different systems. You can easily just transfer that into that new language that you're learning. So that is my point for that question that you asked.
Hmm. Okay. Amazing. So what you mean is learning the core fundamentals, right? And they could be transferable across different languages, right? Or frameworks.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Um yeah, so cool. So what separates a beginner backend developer or to an actual engineer when building out real systems? So now this question now is mostly because of for me personally, I could pick up a backend language, let's say Go, right? And start spinning up maybe some APIs or some trying to build out some systems, right? Then for you, who is a professional as a backend engineer for years, um, what separates both of us, right, from building our real system? Because I could go ahead and build out my backend. It works, right? I click here, I'm interacting with the server and stuff. But for you, as the engineer building out the same system that I'm gonna build, right? What separates both of us? Let's say in code wise or in production code wise.
Thank you very much for asking. So I think my opinion is going to be completely different from
Okay.
what people actually think out there, right? Okay, so my opinion on this is this. A junior backend engineer is actually building systems,
Mm,
right? If they can actually build systems, but it's building the system from the perspective of the errors that they are going to make, right?
mm,
So if they are building this right now, what would happen in the future? This system might break, something might happen to this, whatever I'm building. They are not sure, right? So that is the
mm-hmm,
perspective they are using to build the system. But an experienced software engineer or an experienced backend engineer is not building from that perspective. He's building
okay,
from the perspective of, you know, the errors that they have made, right? How what they learn from it and how they can avoid those errors in this system that they are building right now, right? So that is the differences between a junior developer and a senior developer. Because if you are building from the perspective of fear, you notice that you'll be asking a lot of questions just to be sure before you take action,
yeah,
right? But if you are building from the
mm-hmm,
perspective of
mm-hmm,
experience, you're definitely going to own systems, right? And be able to push forward even when you have challenges with it because you may have already experienced those challenges before. Okay, so that is the differences between a junior developer and an experienced developer.
okay, amazing. So now this question is a very is a good question. I just thought about, and I really want to ask it like it's a personal question, and I think maybe the audience and people listening to this in the future will benefit from this. So what do you think about backend as a service? Right. So we have Superbase, I think we have Upright, we have like different backend as a service, right? SaaS product that are giving us backend services out there to help us spin up your full stack application faster. Most times maybe they have stuff like authentication, storage, edge functions and stuff like that, making it all available for you through a dashboard. So what are your
Mhm.
thoughts? So now this is a two-way question, right? So what are your thoughts about backend as a service? Because obviously maybe you would have used one or two in the future, like in your past. What do you think about it? What do you think about when it comes to scalability, right? When you think about maintainability, when it comes to costs, right? So what do you really think about backend as a service?
All right. So my thought about this is it is good, like it's good products. But I think
Uh-huh.
if you look at the product development chain, right? And then you deep down into backend, development chain. I think what they are helping backend engineers and businesses to solve is speed, right? So they're basically just reducing the amount of time it will take for a product to be completed, right? So it is a good addition, right? In that regard, in that aspect. But it
Okay.
doesn't replace the fact that the core business logic that makes that this particular product different from this other product is going to be built by software engineers, right? So it is it is good in terms of helping us move faster and then
Uh-huh.
thinking directly towards the business logic of the system rather than thinking about the additions that comes around the business logic. Does it make sense? So that is what they are
Hmm.
solving for us. They help us
Okay.
remove those additional systems around the business logic and then make us,
Mm-hmm.
the engineers, focus solely on the business logic. So that's what I think about this product. And it is a very good addition to the backend engineering industry.
Hmm. Okay, cool. Well, now they are what we call vendor lock-ins, right? For most of the services. Where they don't allow you to do some things or they don't give you the full control to over your backend services, right? I don't know if you've seen a scenario like that where you're trying to do something with a particular backend as a service and not being able to do it because there are vendor lock-ins, right? Because they tell you this is how you're going to consume their APIs, this is how you're going to use their SDKs. You don't have that flexibility. What do you think about vendor lock-ins when it comes to these services? Because obviously, one way or the other, yeah, most of them could be headless. You could always customize it as you want, but there's still that what's the word now? There's still that vendor lock-in in a way. Maybe when you get to increasing your costs because you're not managing the storage, you're not managing
Mhm.
authentication, you're not managing anything. They are managing everything for you, and you don't even know what services they are using to manage this behind the scene. So, what do you think about vendor lock-ins?
My opinion on this is I think it boils down to the decision of the customer, right? So I
Okay.
want to believe that most of these vendor lock-in softwares have open source systems for it, right? So if I am a customer, right, trying to decide on the tool I'm going to use, right? I think a good maybe CTO in that business, we should have the knowledge of, thinking in the future, like 5 years, 10 years, right? What is going to happen to
Mm-hmm.
our business if we would need to pull out of vendor lock-in or whatever, or if it doesn't matter to our business. And then they make their decision based on that. And then choose either to go with open source and bear the burden of maintaining and deploying and all of that, or if they should go with this other system that is vendor lock-in. Also, critically thinking about the advantages and benefits between each of these systems. So that is what I think is the answer, in my own opinion. It boils down to the customer. So you decide on which aspects to go. But for vendor lock-in products, I think there are disadvantages of you cannot pull your data out, right?
Uh-huh.
And then they
Okay.
also have benefits of you don't have to maintain any server. Okay,
Hmm.
so I think it's a win-win situation for any business that wants to go in any of these directions, right? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Now I'll phrase the question in a different perspective. You've answered it correctly, and it makes a lot of sense that way. So now I want to spin up a new system, right? Um, should I say a new backend system? Because the backend is always considered the most important part of a system because if a backend is not, for example, if the backend is not secured, um, issues can start from there, right? Hackers and stuff could get get into your servers and have access to your data and whatnot, right? So I want to build a very should I say an ERP system with like maybe 20 modules or 15 modules, which it involves maybe sales
Mm-hmm.
modules, CRM module, um inventory module, just like an example, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I want to move fast because you mentioned speed. I want to move fast. I pick up Superbase, I pick up Upright, I pick up I think those are the two popular super backend service out there. I pick up one of these guys, right? And I start spinning up um my code for each of the modules. Um Now there's a different team or a different company that is doing the same thing, but they hired backend developers, build out these APIs. They have Swagger documentation. They have maybe GitLab documentation. Like they are going the traditional
Mm-hmm.
way of building backend systems, right? While this other team A, are using backend as a service to build this the same sophisticated system. Now remember, I mentioned that it's almost 20 modules, so it's a sophisticated system where we have different modules interacting with each other, right? For example, the sales is interacting with the accounting module is interacting with the inventory module, and they are doing this with like Superbase. Then we have a different team that is doing this with the traditional way of how we build backend systems. Now, in the long run, what do you think could go wrong? These guys could go fast, like you said, they could build fast and push to the market and have customers. These guys too, they could be slow. Okay, I think these days we have AI, right? AI could accelerate their development. But what do you think, or what do you see from your own perspective as a professional that has been in the field for many years? What do you think could go wrong in the next few years for each of these projects?
Yeah. So what I see that could go wrong, thinking about it as a business owner, right, and also a software
Mm,
engineer. So what I see that could go wrong is there will be problem of maintainability, right?
mm, okay.
So if you look at those guys that are building their core systems, right, they would need, I mean, they can scale the maintainability, but it will be high cost. So you have your login, you have all other services that helps you build your core business. You built it. So the code base becomes very large. And then for you to maintain that, you would either need, let's assume, three, four, five more developers, right? Because I think one person cannot fix bugs and add new features. Does it make sense? So they will have a problem of high cost of maintainability right there, right? And then for this other team that actually uses services, now the maintainability part of these services are being handled by these individual services, right?
Okay.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think, right, and I also believe that they would pay fractions of the amount that they are supposed to pay these engineers to these systems that are maintaining that are helping them with these services. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, as a business owner, in this case, they have reduced cost. All right.
Okay.
They have
Correct.
reduced
Yeah.
cost, but this one has incurred more cost. So that could be like what I see. But again, you can also, talk about the aspects where these guys will now have more services to look into. So one of them, in terms of outage, one of them could be down. What happens in that case? Do you understand? So if the service is down, what happens? They do not have to like think of ways to mitigate those problems. Does it make sense? So there is no one side that is actually better than the other. So you as the business owner or as the CTO should have to, weigh your options and decide on the one to go to. But I think I've given you my own clear problem that I sense that would happen between these two systems.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. So I think that makes a lot of sense, right? And it makes sense you trying to see it from a business perspective, right? Because you need to think about as a business owner because you'll be spending funds, right, on hiring developers, paying developers on a monthly basis. But now, okay, I want us to go on with the conversation, but like I actually just want to clear this off. So now, but now there's one thing I'm seeing like from my own experience. This second team has already incurred costs, right? Right? There's a lot of costs for developers, for whatever, for their AWS servers and whatnot. They have to manage servers, errors, and all. Super base guys, these ones, they don't have to worry about these things. They just need to scale their plan, right? If they have issues, they can just scale their plan to 100 GB, 200 GB, 1 terabyte, or whatnot. Um, I don't know. I still feel, correct me if I'm wrong because you're the expert here, right? I still feel like this backend as a service guys could hit a roadblock in the future. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be this year, it might not be next year. But as you have more users, as you try to go, what's the word now? Like into the
Global.
markets, maybe, yeah, global, not just locally, right? When you're thinking about going globally, they might have issues. I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but I see like they could incur costs, a lot of costs at the end of the day, even superseding the natural traditional team that was building this system. And this traditional team, they can manage their system where they could manage their services. They could even have backup services like, okay, if AWS is down, we use Google Cloud. They could have systems like that, right? But backing as a service, we don't know if they have systems like that. Like we don't have the full picture of the engineering system because why? They are taking a lot of abstraction, just giving us APIs and RLS to manage our system. I don't know if you see my own perspective, but I think it's an interesting conversation, right? Yeah, amazing. Okay, so I think we could talk about AI, because that's the current era we are in currently. So do you think AI are replacing backend engineers, or is it reshaping the role? What have you seen happening like across different teams so far?
Yeah. So this particular question is, I think I think nobody knows like the factual answer to it. Everybody is just
Okay.
making assumptions, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
from what we can see, I wouldn't stay with confidence that AI is replacing backend engineers, right? But I think from what we all can see, I can actually, say more about the fact that it is reshaping backend engineering as a whole.
Hmm.
Does it make sense? So,
Yes.
so it's giving developers like backend engineers, it's giving them superpowers.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know if that word is correct, but it's really giving them superpowers.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to explain. What it does is, what superpower means to me is a combination of a lot of things, right? The first one is speed in delivery. So the first one is speed. It's giving them speed. And then the second one rather is efficiency. So it's giving them
Mm-hmm.
efficiency, right? So when you have these two things as a software engineer, you actually can deliver systems that are trustworthy and maintainable. Okay. So if you are not a backend engineer that is thinking towards this direction, then at that point, I think AI is going to replace you. Does it
Hmm.
make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, it
Right?
does. Yeah.
So if you are not a backend engineer that thinks towards this direction, or maybe that knows this direction and you are working towards it, right? I think AI is going to replace you. I'm still not sure because it is all about assumptions, right? But I feel like AI is going to
Mm-hmm.
replace you because when a new tool comes out, right? When a new tool comes out, there are people that catches up to the tool and use it to become productive. But then there are people that falls behind. Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand?
Mm-hmm.
So it is normal. And I still feel that that is what is going to happen in this AI era. Now, if you look at AI engineering, at least the point that I have gotten to, right? If you look at AI engineering, it is like it is a new system that is built on top of backend infrastructure. Does it make
Hmm.
sense? So it
Okay.
is not like
Yeah.
a complete career that you have to, forsake this side and then go and focus on it. No, it is not a complete career like that. It is backend that has extended to this other side. Does it make sense?
Hmm.
So you have
Yeah, it
to
does.
get to a point in this aspect of backend engineering before you can be able to extend to that side that you want to go to, which is the AI engineering route. So I don't see it replacing backend engineers, but I see it reshaping backend engineers, giving them power and then giving them a new direction. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So are you saying, or will you say that junior engineers are at risks right now?
No, I'm not saying junior engineers are at risk. I'm saying
Okay.
junior engineers who do not adopt this technology in the right format or manner or style is at risk. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, now, okay, so let's speak about learning backend engineering in this era,
Okay.
right? Cool. Okay, so personally, I still feel like we still need the fundamentals in as much as we have AI writing the codes and whatnot. Um, we've all used AI to write production code at the point, and we know that you could agree or disagree. Actually, you're free to disagree, but we could agree or disagree that AI could write the wrong code. Maybe, for example, maybe if you're bad at prompting or you don't even have idea of the particular system you're building, you just want AI to just do the stuff and push for you. You could write bad code to production, correct? So I still think we still need the fundamentals of backend engineering, full stack engineering, wherever you're doing, building out softwares, right? Um, so how do developers learn in this kind of era where we have, for example, now I want to build out. Now I'm going to talk on the front end, right? I want to build out a front end application. I have APIs, I have Swagger documentation, right? I'm already ready for like maybe 100 APIs, and I have a product requirement documents um explaining the product I'm trying to build. I could just take it to Cloud Code, take the Swagger JSON, right? Plug it to Cloud Code, upload my PDF to Cloud Code, and say, Cloud Code, this is what you're supposed to build. In less than an hour, I could have a working system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 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 why should I go ahead and start learning backend development? Why should I go ahead and start learning front end development? Why should I go and start learning what is promise in JavaScript? Why should I start learning what is asynchronous JavaScript? Why should I do that? When AI can just do that for me. So the question goes back to how can developers, backend, front end, full stack, whatever, right? How can they learn in this AI era?
All right. Thank you very much for that. So this AI era is really tough, right? Especially whether whether it is still necessary for people to learn backend engineering, software engineering because of the happenings. The happenings are like, sorry, I'm going to use this word, are crazy. Like you, you are just limited to like people are just limited to like the knowledge that they have seen AI do. Like if you've seen AI, if you've seen the things that AI can actually do, you are going to be shocked to the marrows, like to your bones, right? And then you're going to have
Mm-hmm.
this doubt that is actually if it is still necessary to learn these things. But there's
Yeah.
something that I want to also tell you that is going to be mind blowing, right? So AI makes mistakes according to your information when you shared it. AI actually makes
Mm-hmm.
mistakes. Now that is the same way any software engineer or any system that are built by humans has errors. So software engineers naturally actually make mistakes, right? So
Oh, okay.
AI is actually artificial intelligence. So it is not the real intelligence that human beings actually have. So
Hmm.
for you to make that artificial intelligence to actually do things perfectly, exactly the way that you would want it, it means that you have to get to that point in your own knowledge where you are able to, give the system instructions, right? To actually perform and return the exact results that you have in your head. Does it make sense? So for you to be able to do that, you yourself definitely need that knowledge to that point where you can produce those kind of systems.
Hmm.
Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand? So if
Yeah.
a senior, maybe a principal software engineer at Google comes to this room, and then a software engineer at a very small or startup comes to this room, right?
Huh?
And then they want to build a particular system. And then there is just only PROD. This is what you need to do, right? Nothing is being attached. Now, if the senior engineer at Google actually prompts the AI to return those codes or to build that system, now it's completely going to be different from what the engineer at the startup is going to do. Now, that is
Correct.
not the AI. That is not the AI. It is the intelligence of the individual human being that is producing those
Correct.
outputs, right?
Hmm.
So that is why backend
Hmm.
engineering, software engineering, all this is not getting replaced, but it is getting improved, and the bar is actually being raised.
Hmm.
Does it make sense? So that is
Yeah, that
my
makes
answer to that
sense.
question.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So now, um, how do developers, how do junior developers, how do intern new people that are coming into the field, right? How can they have that intelligence? Like you said, it's the intelligence that matters, right? The human intelligence to prompt the right prompt and based on your experience over the years. Now, somebody that doesn't have that years of experience, right? How can they build that years of experience? Because there's this urge of there's not patience anymore. Like if you're building product these days when you have AI, you don't have this patience. Before we take a lot of time to build out stuff, to understand documents, to even understand the thing we are building very, very much. But these days we correct me if I'm wrong, but like we don't spend too much time because we feel like code is not more important anymore because AI can always bring out that code, right? So how do people learn to build that experience over the years when they have AI that can just do it in less than a minute for them? How can they have that discipline? I think that's the question.
Yeah. So the problem is not whether backend engineers are still needed or not. Now, the problem is the discipline, right?
Yeah.
How do we actually get that discipline to sit down and learn? So I think one thing that helps is just understanding that this life or whatever you are doing, whatever career that you want to delve into, there are phases, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you want to become a backend engineer, there are stages where you are learning. So just relax on that stage and just learn, right? So you can actually get to that experience level in less time. But the problem is, do you actually know that level or do you know what to learn to get to that level? Do you understand? So that is actually the problem because people could waste years beating around the bush, learning things that are not directly proportional to exactly where they are going to. Does it make
Okay.
sense? So
Yes.
if you want to become an experienced backend engineer, let's say in less than 6 months, right? I know
Mm-hmm.
experience comes with you actually doing things, but I'm just going to paraphrase to just give you an example of what I think you should do, right?
Okay.
The first thing is learn the fundamentals, right? Understand the fundamentals of what is backend. How does it even come to be, right? Normal fundamentals, understand it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then pick a programming language and start learning. So when you're learning a programming language, like I already said before, don't learn it in a syntax format. All right? Learn it as if you are using it to solve problems. Right?
Hmm.
And then when you're done learning a language, when you're learning a language, you build little product like what we call tutorial projects. It's fine, just build all that. But when you've gotten like a few muscle memories, like you can build stuff, right? Now pick a project, right? And build it first, right? Make sure that it is completed, it is live, and there are people that are using it. So the people could be your friends, right? Make sure
Okay.
that happens. And then the next thing is pick another difficult project and build it. But now don't just make it live, right? Try those. There's something they call load testing. Try to load test that system. Like start with like if you have 100 rows in a database for users, just manually impute 100,000 users to your database,
Hmm.
right? And then fill
Okay.
your database tables with like 100,000 records. Okay. And then ask your friends to go and try it out again. Okay. And then tell them to report what they are experiencing. Right. So some of them they will experience like, it takes time to load. This is happening, that is happening, there are this bug, this bug. So you note everything down and then you fix it. Focus on fixing it till a point where somebody is okay with it. And then you can move on again to another system. Now, this time, load test it with 1 million records. All right.
Hmm.
So with this, you notice that you can actually get to a level of, let's say, someone building systems for 2 million users, 3 million users, and stuff like that. And then you know exactly what to do to actually, mitigate the problems that that particular system would have. If you can do this for 6 months, right? If you can do it,
Okay.
dedicate your time on it and do it for 6 months, I believe you will level up, right? You will level up to a certain point, and then you now need a real job experience to actually crown everything up. And if you present yourself as, that 6 months time to a company, I believe you're going to get hired for you to actually get that experience. So this is the method that I feel like you can learn very quick and become a backend engineer. And then from there, you can then start integrating AI into the knowledge that you already have building this system. Does it make
Okay.
sense?
Okay, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So it all boils down to your discipline to understand the
Exactly.
fundamentals before. Yeah, amazing, amazing. So for people that are listening, right, you have to build that discipline. Make sure you are very very disciplined, right, to make sure you learn the fundamental because they are still needed. You still need them to even understand the code that your AI gives to you, right? Amazing. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of things, and this has really been an exciting one. So we'll try to like wrap it up now. But
Okay.
let's quickly just talk about system design, right? I think the question basically is, can AI actually help us with that? Can AI help us with system designs? Um, I think.
Yeah. So yeah. So I haven't really tried giving AI a system
Uh-huh.
design task. I think maybe after this
Okay.
call, I'm going to set some time to actually try that and see. But from what I can say, I feel like yes, AI can actually design a system for you. And then this also depends
Okay.
on the level of inputs that you actually give to the AI.
Yeah.
But right, it can help you like as your assistant, but then you can actually be the person leading the entire design by yourself. Okay, to make sure that you have a solid system that is being that combine the knowledge of your experience and also that of the AI to actually produce good results. So yes, I'm going to say yes, AI can actually design a system, but that would also be from your own experience as someone that has designed so many systems in terms of how well AI designed that particular system that you go through.
Okay, amazing, amazing, amazing answer. So speaking about examples of bad decisions that backend developers has made,
Mm-hmm.
So are there bad decisions you've seen backend developers make at the initial start of an application or a software or a system, right? That you as an experienced person already see that this is going to cause an issue in the next few, maybe when the APIs are more, or maybe when we have more users, like stuff you can just spot from experience. That is a bad decision, but beginner developers might not really spot them immediately when starting out a new system.
Yeah. So, sorry, engineers, I'm going to be coming from like the business perspective again. So one thing that I've seen that has become a problem at the long run, even in my own products, right, is so when I mentioned, two things when we started the call, I said a backend engineer actually plan a system and then maintains a system, right? So let's talk about the planning part. So when you do system design, right? When you actually do system design for a system, that is part of the planning, right? Your architecture,
Mm-hmm.
you're planning that particular system. But then you as a backend engineer that is going to build that system, right? There is another form of planning that you need to do. Okay. So that is what we now call business modeling. Okay. So you need to understand the model of this business that you are building the backend for, right? And then you need to now
Mm-hmm.
understand like the databases that this business is going to have, all the different endpoints that this particular product is going to have. So you need to have all
Mm-hmm.
these already planned out and then you start building. Okay, so that you
Okay.
basically just follow through a plan. Now, if there is any additions to the plan, then you can, maybe add it or decide whether to add it or not. So that is one of the mistakes that I see backend engineers actually make. So when they want to start building systems, they just jump in because they have the system design already. So they just start jumping in and guessing through the system. But if they really sit down and architect the system and know exactly what databases they need, what endpoints that they actually need before the additions, then I believe that they are going to be following a strategy until the end of that product, rather than maybe getting confused at a certain stage and creating a bloated system. Does it make sense? So that is what I think is one of the mistakes that they make. They don't plan out the system thoroughly before they start building it out.
Okay, okay, amazing, amazing. So what you're saying is good planning, um, because at the long run you might run into roadblocks, and if you don't have a good plan, you might not be able to build a good foundation of your system. Amazing. So let's quickly just jump into the future of backend engineering. Like you said previously, everything these days is assumption because of the age of AI. A lot of things are moving fast. A lot of updates from the Anthropic team every week, and keeping us up on our toes. So what do you think happens to backend engineering? Like, what does it look like in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, this is assumptions, right? Just from your own personal experience. What do you think happens to backend engineering? What does it look like in the next 2 to 3 years?
So what I think is going to happen to backend engineering is nothing.
Hmm,
Nothing is actually going to
that's
happen to backend
confidence.
engineering, right?
Okay,
The only thing that is going to happen is that backend engineering is going to be backend engineering, right? But it's going to be improved.
okay,
Does it make sense? It's actually going to be improved. Now, I've actually built agents. I built rack systems, I built MCPs. These things are just still backend
okay.
engineering. Like they are literally still, but you
Yeah,
write
yeah.
code, like you write code, right? The
Mm-hmm.
only difference is that normal backend actually calls APIs, external APIs. So that is the same thing that happens in AI agent and stuff. You just simply call OpenAI API, right? And then the entire architecturing and engineering of your agents is still backend engineering or is still engineering. So that is the reason why I said nothing is going to happen, but the products that we are going to be building as backend engineers are going to be the only thing that changed. Okay. So we are not going to be building normal products that using if statement to make decisions alone, right? We are now going to be building systems that are intelligent, but we are still going to be building the system,
Okay.
right? So that is why I said
Okay.
nothing's going to happen to backend engineering, but rather something is going to happen to products that is coming out. Do you understand? So if a product change or if products that are coming out are changing, then as a backend engineer, you need to now upscale or upskill to actually learn how to build those set of products that are changing. Does it make sense?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
again, what we need to also do is to also understand how to use this intelligence to actually make your work of building these intelligent systems faster and efficient. That is just all you need. And you're still going to be a backend engineer, right?
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool. So cool. So some CTOs, some CEOs, in most of these companies that are trying to replace software engineers, they might disagree, right? Because they are trying to replace backend developers, right?
Yeah,
Um.
so sorry, can I say something there?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, so that is fine. I think I've seen cases like that. What they're actually replacing is, I think, first, they're actually reducing workforce, right? So if they have 20 teams, they can now reduce it to like 5. Do you understand?
Okay.
So I don't think that is replacing, but I think it is reducing, right? The number.
Okay.
So making the bar to become a production ready backend engineer very high. Does it make sense?
Hmm.
But then there is
Yeah.
this new era that we are shifting into where we have AI workers, things they call AI
Hmm.
employees, and then you can now set them to run maybe autonomously or maybe not autonomously, right?
Okay.
So until we get to a point where we can trust completely our entire system to an AI, maybe an AI backend engineer that runs every day, then we are still going to have backend engineers, right?
Okay.
We are still going to have backend
Amazing.
engineers. But like I said, a backend engineer is not someone that writes the code, right?
Yeah.
You write the code, but that is really, really not what you do. What you do is planning the system and maintaining the system. So if you are a backend engineer that does these two things, I don't think you're going to be replaced. All right.
Okay.
So we can
Cool.
just have AI employees that does writing of the code that you have already planned. Make sense?
Amazing. Yeah, it makes sense. But can't AI plan and also manage the system?
Yeah, AI can plan. Of course, we've seen plan mode, but the plan
Yeah.
actually happens when there's someone that is able to give them clear instructions, right? So except there is another AI that will be able to give clear instructions. So we are still waiting,
Okay.
right? But I believe it's possible. I'm not against it. So like I said, everything about AI is assumptions. But from the data that we have right now, I think that is the answer I can give to the questions that you've been asking.
Amazing. Amazing. I think this has really been a exciting and interesting conversation around AI, backend engineering, and all. So let's quickly just jump into quick fire questions, right? So do you think so? It's a disagree or agree, yes or no, right? First off, do you think AI is making engineers lazy?
I agree. Yeah, I can. It is okay.
Okay. Okay. Amazing.
I agree.
Amazing. Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. So are most tutorials just a waste of time?
I agree again. Yes.
Okay. Attending a boot camp in 2026 as a software engineer, is this still worth it?
If it is worth it, I agree.
Okay.
But of
So you
course, it
agree to
depends. It depends on the promise of the bootcamp, like the value you are
okay.
getting from the bootcamp. But I agree that
All right.
it still has strong benefits.
Okay, cool, amazing. So, do you agree or disagree that learning to code is becoming less important? I think you already mentioned it, but you're free to answer.
I disagree. I disagree.
Hmm. Okay. Um, that's all right. Do you think AI will actually replace engineers that people expect? Because you already mentioned an example of 20 to 5 team, right? That's a very, very lost percentage being lost in between. So do you agree that AI will replace more engineers than we expect?
Okay, so can I mean, in like
Okay.
20 years, I don't know what would happen in 20 years, but I could agree in
Okay.
future. But, but right now, I strongly disagree, right?
Hmm. Okay. 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 Amazing. 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 Okay. So I think um we've talked about a lot of stuff. Talked about AI. We've
hmm
talked about engineering, backend engineering, different perspective from Solomon perspective, right? As the professional, in this conversation, and there's a lot of insights to take out from this conversation, right? So let's just end this. Let's end this particular episode, right? So one quick word for people that want to learn backend development out there, people that want to start today, people that want to start their career today as a backend developer, or people that want to switch roles from maybe being a front end developer to picking backend skills. Just one advice for them out there.
Yeah. So one thing that I would say is, if you want to become a backend engineer, go for it, right? Go to masteringbackend.com, join our community, reach out to me, and I will give you clear directions on exactly how to get to
Okay.
that professional backend engineering level where you can now communicate properly with AIs, right?
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Amazing. So guys, that's a very clear part, right? I think I will leave a link to the website you just mentioned, so you can reach out to Solomon if you have thoughts, if you have questions. And it makes sense to join his community too, where he gets to like talk about backend development a lot across the social media platforms. So for people that are interested in following you, right? What's your social media handles across the platforms you are currently active on, so they could follow you, right?
So majorly is at Capacity Guru. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I mean, I just started
Uh,
TikTok. So,
okay.
so TikTok, right? At Capacity Guru. And then LinkedIn, Solomon Eseme. And then YouTube, Solomon Eseme too.
Ah, okay, amazing, amazing. So, so Solomon, thank you for coming to this episode of Talks with Today Evergreen. We've talked a lot of stuff. Thank you for taking out your busy schedule to come do this. And I think we can end the episode here and see you guys in the next one. Bye,
All
guys.
right. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Yeah.